So we are here again, and I'm going to dive right in. I've gotten more into the VSE and watched the course, and it's really fascinating. It's really interesting to me. But I wear many hats, as you know, Joe. Like I do a
Yeah.
lot of developer related things like stored procedures and coding and that kind of environment. But I also wear the DBA hat, probably even more. And I felt very much so that vector search is a an intense hardcore developer feature that has so much power. Don't get me wrong, so much power. But as a DBA, I felt like it was kind of scary. As a developer, I was like, okay, this is freaking cool. I have so many things I can open up in my app. But as a DBA, there's things that kind of scared me. And so it's interesting to me. Like, how do you feel about that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, first of all. And it's interesting though, because I had to go layers in. When I first heard about this was a few years ago at MongoDB, and when I heard about it, it was so abstract. And then I started to see it be applied specifically to the search space. So through Atlas Search was the name of the offering. And then it became more mainstream and everybody was talking about vector databases. But again, like you look at a lot of the documentation and it's search related and it's related to search quality. And so people in classic search roles or even like front end developer designers, somebody trying to get that first experience to ensure engagement, none of this is ringing DBA. And
Yeah,
yet, once you
right.
have a vector database in the mix, the DBA needs to start understanding this. And so it took me a little while to go a few layers in and go, okay, there are likely a lot of decisions happening outside of the DBA zone or span of control
Yeah,
that have major effects.
yeah,
And we could talk about those. But to your earlier, like Vector Search Essentials, going through that course, like that's the light touch. Like that's the, okay, let's bring
yeah.
you into this world. But I see it out there. There's an immediate allergy of what is this thing in here? And by the way, also through history, because there's different data types that were added in the past, like remember graph, remember like with a lot of potential that didn't necessarily
And died
go
a slow death.
beyond.
Even the natural
Yeah.
language. I mean, we've been talking about
Yes.
natural language with SQL Server for, I want to say 20, 25 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
good number of years, and it never took off. Yet the interest was there. And you think of, like, I don't even do a web search the way I used to anymore. Everything is now I write in sentences, I go to the
Yeah.
AI tool. I as a data person am now doing everything through natural language. So I see this as huge for our data professionals to be leveraging, but I see the entry point for DBAs as being kind of scary. So it's almost like we need to get people to prototype, like need to get stakeholders to say, okay, this is really cool because we want this kind of feature, and then we want developers to like, wow, this opens up so many options. And then the DBAs kind of step in and say, okay, we can make our database more vector friendly. We can add the indexes that are needed to make it efficient. We can make the calls to AI services to end up converting the search to a vector capable search. And the costs are actually not that high, but it's like we need to find the right people that understand the power of this. What would you say is the most important thing that people can do with vector search? Like, why would you say to somebody, this is the feature, or these two features are the things that are going to bring you to the next level with your customers, with getting them to buy additional things? Like, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but I feel like when I go to Amazon and then they tell me their consolidated review, which is AI built, I love that. When they tell
Yeah.
me, these are the other products you might consider, that's AI. And I know we don't have all of those features, but moving towards that ability to analyze your data better, to bring your customers better information, is going to get you more sales, right? So, like,
Right.
I see the power of this, but I feel like it's kind of scary right now, you know? Like, even I was kind of like, ooh, vector search is intense. And I feel like I'm pretty darn technical, right? But
Yes.
I think I'm the wrong initial market as a DBA, but then as a developer, I was like, ooh, this is really, really cool, but I don't do front end stuff.
Yeah.
So that's also where I was like, okay, I'm not necessarily the right person, you know?
And yet, and yet we
And
should
yet
know
I'm
about it.
super,
And
I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
see the
yeah.
power. I just think that it's not pushing down right. People are not
Let's do
getting
a
it, you
let's
know?
do like a thought exercise. Actually, this is
Yeah,
perfect because this
perfect.
is like okay, because I think this is going to be more of the norm. Actually, now the norm as of the last few weeks is you're doing agentic coding,
Yes.
meaning the agent is making a lot of these decisions. So
Yeah,
just
for
even I
sure.
remember just episode 1 or 2 where you and I were chatting. I'm like, well, you need to make sure that you're at the table. Well, now that table is abstracted somewhere in
Yeah,
agent land. So like just what a difference even a couple months makes.
for sure.
So let's take an anti-pattern. So I am a developer talking to my agent. Okay. And I say, agent, I need an application that finds the absolute best product match based on my profile. And I have a SQL Server instance over here that has all of my details of my past history of orders, my location, maybe things that I've liked, so anything I've
Wow.
engaged with.
Okay.
So you have this like all this is regular relational data now at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so these are all this transaction data, preference data, user engagement data. And this is I'm presuming this is opt-in data, like where you said yes, you can share this.
Right.
Okay. So, agent, I need you to build a capability that looks at this mosaic of preferences and gives me the number one product recommendation for the holiday time. Okay.
Okay.
This is a potential vector search use case that is a good one, I think, because it's
Oh,
all
it's
about semantic
fantastic.
understanding.
And it's also
Now,
based on transactional data, which
yes,
is
and it's based on
interesting to me.
transactions. So you may be pulling from different things. So by the way, you're talking to the agent right now. Like
Yeah.
this could be Claude Code, it could be ChatGPT's, or it could be OpenAI's version of it. It could be Gemini, whatever. It could be open source. But the whole thing is you are now talking to something agentic that can go off, do tool use, develop an application, make choices like where are we going to store the vector data?
Okay.
Okay, where are we going to store the embeddings? Now, I gave that agent the clue that, hey, I've got all this data in SQL Server. But oftentimes with these agentic engineering tasks, you will just give it here's like just the general, here's what I want you to do. And how you do it, I don't care.
Right.
So I might say, I want you to basically pull all these different data points, create an embedding on that then can match to embedded data that represents our product catalog and descriptions.
Right.
And then whatever matches on that, return that to the
Present
user
that
based
to the
on the
customer.
nearest similarity.
Right.
So if I tell the agent that in our world, it probably immediately makes sense that if we're already in SQL Server, let's say you're on SQL Server 2025, you might want to start with using their vector capabilities. Not saying that if for scale that this is your destination, but for a proof of concept, just go ahead and use that.
Yeah, exactly.
But can we make that assumption? No, because agentically, what does it know? What was that model trained on? If you're talking to Google, just as of a couple months ago, it didn't even acknowledge that SQL Server 2025 had been released. So it's going to go, Chroma, Pinecone, we could do MongoDB, we could do Elasticsearch, we could do, it might go off and go, well, based on the requirements, I'm going to go ahead and install this local version of a way to store vector data. And then we're just going to pull from SQL Server and then do our embeddings over here.
Right.
Maybe we'll do Turbo Puffer. And now all of a sudden you have a distributed system.
Right.
Now that alone is a consequential decision.
Yeah.
It may have made a bunch of other decisions like, well, in the embedding model, I'm going to pick the one that's like 394 dimensions instead of 1,500 some dimensions. That's cool, but maybe the quality's way
Not as
less.
good,
So
yeah.
then, or maybe it's too high and now I'm going to have to store 10 terabytes instead of 10 gig. Or I'm going to pick a closed source that's going to cost you 3 cents per million tokens. Or I'm going to do open source, but your company doesn't have that policy. So the agent starts, it'll roll with what you give it.
Yeah.
It'll make a lot of decisions. And by the way, again, 2 months ago, we were talking about there is a designer or a developer out there making these decisions.
Yeah.
Now we're saying the agent is making these decisions. So the key thing
But you
is,
can tune
at what
that
point
in the agent, right? You could
you
say
can. You
in the
can.
next step, no, I don't want to use OpenAI, or no, I don't want to use the external.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I'm terrible because I'm still learning all of this, but I don't want to use the external. I want to use it in SQL, and you can keep point in it to that. And I mean, the nice thing is we've had the developer edition of SQL Server for free for years. So I mean, it is from a prototyping perspective a nice,
Yeah.
easy platform. Runs on Windows. Yeah, I mean, just so many things that I think are easy for a lot of developers. And that sounded marketing. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying for somebody to prototype, even if they're not in SQL Server, they
It's
can
already there.
at least. Yeah, it's easy. And
Yeah.
like your course is based on that too, because again, it's easy, even though all the concepts apply to all the other environments as well. But that's not even the point. The point is you can see how it would do that, and you can see how it would pull that information, and you can see how it would then build this environment and tell you what is the product that would be beneficial to you. Now, you might not use exactly as that prototype was prototyped, but at least you can pull from that data, regardless of where you've stored it, and you can use AI on that data, again, regardless of which tool you're using, to then say this is the, nearest neighbor, the closest product related to the other products you've purchased. And that concept, even if, again, you don't go with that design, first of all, you've done it through AI, vibe coding, agentic code, where you haven't had to write all the code. So hopefully the time to prototype, the time to show that information is not like it used to be. It's not months. It's not even weeks anymore. We're talking, probably days if you fine tune it a lot, probably hours if you're pretty clever with the tools to begin with, right? So I'm not saying the first time you use it, you're going to magically have a prototype in 14 minutes. That's not at all
These
true.
days, honestly, in the last couple of weeks, yes. I mean, it's like it's getting that good. But
But you know what you're doing. For me,
I
it would
but
not be 14 minutes.
it's getting scary. It's moved from amazing to scary in the
Wow.
level of its capabilities. But kind of harkening back, like going back to
Yeah.
your earlier points, this has always been the turf of like a designer, a developer, engineering, search. So like somebody who has search expertise, that's a very specific flavor of expertise.
True.
In the second course, Vector Search and Practice, I like go through some of the different metrics. Those are metrics that typically search analysts are looking at. Like,
Right.
how do I know that my search is relevant? DBAs don't have to deal with that
Right.
oftentimes.
Well,
But now we're in the
stakeholders
zone.
do, and the developers need to make sure it's
You do.
relevant. Yeah.
But I would just say this: the sooner that database administrators understand this and database developers, the better, because you want to get in the mix. So when somebody's doing their proof of concept, and now it could be anybody in the company, it could be the CEO, okay, who's like,
that's
well, I
true.
vibe coded over the weekend XYZ, and it's using Chroma, and it's using this, and it's using that, and it'll cost $10,000 a day to run, but it works. Make
Right.
this so. It's a lot
That's.
more helpful when a
Can you
database
imagine if
administrator.
CEOs start doing that, which they
They are
could?
they are doing it. It is
They are
happening
doing.
right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
CEOs like Bill Gates,
Sam
people
Altman
that
is
are,
doing
yeah,
it.
that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
so they
which
are
is
doing
crazy. Yeah.
so like everybody is a builder now, and that's fun. It's scary, but it also means that as a database administrator, the faster you get educated on why do we care about the number of dimensions? Why do we care about the embedding model? Why do we
Exactly.
care about local versus distributed? All of these decisions, the design patterns, how do you do your schema? If you don't chime in and have an opinionated point of view on this, the agent will. And so what's going to happen is people are going to go, well, it's already working, so why are you
Exactly.
hassling
If it
me
ain't
about
broke, don't
this?
fix it.
Yeah,
Let's just use this, where you
and you've
might
got
be
a
able.
Franken architecture.
Right, and you might be able to do a lot better from a backup restore perspective, from
Yeah,
a distributed perspective. I mean, I hate to throw this out there, but there was a hit to an um, Amazon web storage facility in Saudi Arabia, or in Abu Dhabi, and it it took out a lot of military businesses. So operationally, we think of failover technologies and AI technologies. Where are they located? What's our geo platform? And
yeah.
my point is having stuff inside a SQL Server where you have a platform that has geo failover capabilities gives you so many benefits. And okay, so I'm going to step back for a second and say, I think there's a lot of motivation here, and we have great courses. And I'm going to go marketing niche for a second because I want to motivate people to check this out. And it's the SQL developers and the SQL DBAs. Although I would argue, even if you're not in SQL, these are incredibly useful topics and concepts to look at, even though you might prototype and work in and do the examples in a SQL Server database, remember that SQL Server Developer Edition is free, so you can easily do that. We are going to create for our March Madness, we're doing a March Madness sale. So we're going to do a March Madness sale for AIVSE and AIVSP. So 2 courses together for 1 year for half price. So 50%
So Vector Search
off.
Essentials and Vector Search and Practice, and both of those together half off.
And your discount
And the Essentials, by the way, is like just like it sounds. It's like all the fundamentals that you need to know. And the Vector Search and Practice gets into vector search in general as well. We use SQL Server, but it really is, what do you as a data professional need to know
and
in order to interact with
different motivations, even more reasons. So that discount code is POD, P-O-D, March. And it's because you guys saw it in the podcast. And we thank you.
How many minutes are we in? So they if they were in 17 minutes or so, they saw the discount code.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get to it sooner next week. But this to me, I feel like I'm understanding better why people are struggling, because now I'm understanding the technology better. But I also see the power in it, and I want people to understand that. I'm not sure what direction the motivation has to come from. And it's interesting to me. Like, it's so like all new features. But this to me doesn't feel like a feature. And I know this, it's not going to just die like so many others have died in the past. This one is hugely powerful. I mean, hugely, but this one is so powerful, and it has so much potential. And I'm just sorry. I don't want to sound marketing-ish, but I feel like it's not getting traction from the right directions to a point, because I think people are almost afraid that it's so complicated, but it's not, but it's also so powerful, which does inherently make it a little more complicated, right? So it's like...
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of the complexity is actually external to the functionality itself, and it's moving so quickly that I think it's intimidating. But I'll
people
just...
are scared at AI for so many other reasons too, like the bad AI that they've seen. And this isn't that. This isn't making stuff up. This isn't grabbing citations that don't exist. This is taking real data and analyzing that real data to come up with real recommendations from your real product list, right? So like, to take that example. So there's no spurious transformations or correlations here, as we would call them. I think there's so much power here. I'll leave it at that. Do you want to?
No, I'll tell you this. Going independent, I wanted to dig deep into this because I was personally interested in it because of all the potential. There's been like 3 eras in my career where I had the same kind of drive. The first was weights and cues methodology. When Tom Davidson came out with that paper, it was like I was a premier field engineer at the time, and I read it and I'm like, here we go. Like, I had that same like excitement.
Weights and cues. Yep.
Yes, the weights and cues. And then Paul ended up doing a course on it. That was like the first era. Second era was cardinality estimation. And I remember it was like MVP Summit. And we were sitting in on a session with I think it was one of the program managers talking about the new CE.
Yeah.
And which is now not new at all. And I remember being like, huh? And having like that moment. This is like the third era where it's like, I don't, whether people find this interesting, I hope that they do. I was like, I need to get into this. And because it is the handshake part. Like, if you don't, there's certain decisions that you can make that you'll get away with it for a little while, and then it's like an exponential mess.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't make the right decisions, which is the part that I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And also just the problems it can solve, which you could talk about another time.
Yeah. Well, extended events is another one that I feel like these are features that have stuck and have been built upon and built upon and built upon and have become an absolutely integral part to the database. And I feel that too for vector search. So I think this is one of those features that even if you're scared right now, the more you get to know it now, I think the more of a payoff it's going to have as it explodes over the next few years.
Agree.
So
yeah.
Okay. Awesome, Joe. This was great. Okay.
Thanks, Kimberly.
So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.